In Nova Scotia, RCMP issued a long-awaited formal apology to African Nova Scotians and people of African descent for their past use of street checks and other harmful practices. During a ceremony held at the North Preston Community Centre, the RCMP acknowledged the damage these practices inflicted on Black Nova Scotians for decades.
Assistant Commissioner Dennis Daly delivered the apology, expressing regret for the negative impact these actions have had on individuals, their families, and the broader community. This apology follows years of advocacy and demands for accountability and change.
Right, let's take a look at the highlights from the event.
God, keep our land glorious and free.
We thank you for guiding us to this point where conversations can now turn into meaningful action and where apologies can be met with commitment to change.
Ashe, 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 ashe.
We want this to be the beginning of embarking upon a journey which will engender mutual collaboration and respect between the African Nova Scotian communities and the RCMP.
Together we proclaim that violence has no place in our community and that we are all deserving of love, respect, and safety. And to the people of the Preston Township, we've come this far by faith.
I would now like to call upon Andrea Davis, Executive Director of the Black Loyalist Heritage Center. She's joining us from Birchtown.
As an 8th generation descendant of the Black Loyalists in Shelburne and Birchtown, I have a responsibility to ensure that history does not repeat itself and that we move forward.
This apology is long overdue. In my opinion, there's no valid reason as to why an apology has not been issued before. We have disrespected your community. During our community visits, you told us, our kids are scared, and enough is enough. Treat us equally. Harm builds on itself. It starts young. I'm sorry for the fear and mistrust we've created. You've been speaking about your experiences for years. I am truly sorry it's taken so long for you to be heard.
Welcome back. Nicole, you were at that event, and can you just give us some sense of how you felt being a member of the community and then having the police meeting with your people? Talk about these things.
Well, first of all, thank you, Promise, for such a question. And how I feel as a community member, very proud of the Preston Township, and also to the fact that we were able to at least get to this point with an apology. Now, it's long overdue, but very proud of that. What I could say, because I can recall being in the seat, was feeling, okay, now what, right? Like a sincere apology requires a change of behavior and action. And so we can do fluffy words, we can do all these pretty, accolades and apologies, but what happens after? Because enough is enough. And change is required, it's needed. And we've had some young people in that room that has had encounters with the police. And we have people who are now older who also had encounters with the police. And just being in the community sometimes isn't always a positive. But sitting in that room, to answer your question, felt like we're waiting to hear.
Absolutely.
And what we want to hear better be right. Right? And I think also under the leadership of Mr. Dennis Daly, Assistant Commissioner Dennis Daly, I feel good about that. I got to know him personally at a gala, at the Black Culture Center gala. And under right leadership, I think some positive steps will happen.
Right. I'm curious to know what the mood would have been like for such a historic moment for you and other members of the community. Can you give us a picture of what it was like that day?
To answer that question honestly, it was somewhat intense there was some heaviness in the room because we'd been down these roads so many times, and the trauma, the levels of trauma is there, and it will always be there, right? So you can apologize, but it's the action behind it. It's taking those necessary steps to keep engaging in community and building those trust relationships, because without that, it's nothing. There's no foundation for building upon anything.
Yeah, and of course, I mean, you can take away the fact that the trauma is still there, the experiences of members of the community, all of that lumps up would tell how people would receive this. But do you believe the police apology, police chief, is a step in the right direction, and it's most likely going to lead to true reconciliation?
Well, I can't speak on behalf of the RCMP. I just hope the individuals that I know that are employed by RCMP, and there are some good constables, there are some good officers there, and I do need to say that because they are. And under the right leadership, again, I go back to leadership, right? If you have a leader who is passionate and driven and is seeking to do justice and right by the community, everything else should follow. So where the head goes, the body must follow.
Absolutely. Where the head goes, the body will follow. Take me back to you growing up within your community, what it was like for the relationship you then had with the police, and what it is right now that you feel your people are still feeling some sense of, unfair treatment, if you like. What was it like? Can you give us that picture?
I could paint a short picture. So for me, growing up personally, I've not had an encounter with the police young, but my uncles and cousins, males, have. And as an observer, as a young child observing that, I felt I wanted to protect them. As a matter of fact, I wanted to be a lawyer to defend them.
Oh, really?
That was what my career goal was going to be, because I wanted to protect them, even as a child, because I know these individuals, and they have good hearts, they have dreams and aspirations, and they made a mistake. But what I did see was one officer who would come and visit the homes and speak with the parents and try to do what we now call restorative justice for some of these Black males, and sit with them and get to know them and invite them out to play hockey. And my grandfather, Mr. David Johnson, who is passed on now, was an avid hockey player and very interested, and that was an interest. So by doing that, you are also involving the parents to do community engagement. So that was one example that I see. But there wasn't a lot of positive presence from the police, unless it was coming to either break up domestic violence or, again, to arrest someone. But I didn't see that. My family did a good job at shielding us from that. But we were raised to respect the authority and elders. And even to this day, even if it's to our own detriment, we still give the respect to our RCMP when they're in the community. But sometimes it's not reciprocated. And that's another issue.
I see. Yeah. That's sad to know. But so how do you think the apology, will impact community relationship, with the law enforcement moving forward? What sort of impact do you expect from what the police chief said?
Well, I expect Assistant Commissioner Daly to stand on what he said, because he said it publicly, and be accountable to that, but also be consistent, right? And follow up and stay in communication with the board members and that body of people that are meeting together on a regular to make sure that this action plan takes place and gets done. It's not a one-off thing, right? Consistency, right? And following through that, right? You be a man of your word, you be a people of your word, and you follow through with that. And that doesn't just mean throw it on the community. That collaboration, those partnerships, that teamwork, all of that stuff, when it's married together, works. Yeah, and it works for everybody.
Absolutely. You've had a personal relationship, first contact at least with him, and you seem to have said some positive things about what his personality is. And given the body language that everybody saw that day, I'm ready to come in and be part of this community, and I'm willing to make things work to repair this relationship and the trust that is lost. Do you think that is the same sense that other members of the community are getting?
I think again, I can't speak.
Is there trust right now, you think?
There is no trust. right?
Is there hope?
There's
that they
hope.
can now?
Absolutely. Absolutely. There'll always be hope.
Right.
Because again, I go back to the fact of who we are as a people, who we are as a community, right? We're so opening. We're so welcoming, again, even to our own detriment, right? We always have hope. But the trust, that needs work. It requires work.
Absolutely.
Right? And how do we do that? We do by showing up to do the work.
That's
we
right.
do it by standing on our word.
Mm-hmm.
And we do that by caring about a community that for decades have been discounted for and disregarded.
Right. There might be some specific expectations from them. What would be those specific actions that you think the RCMP will have to take beyond the apology to repair the trust with the African Nova Scotian community?
Well, develop relationship. And Commissioner said something when he was addressing the group in front.
Right.
And those who he's been in communication with. And he called Deacon Wallace Smith, such as Deacon Wallace Smith. How would you know he's a deacon? How do you know? Because you've been in the community to know that.
That's right.
Otherwise, you would have called him Mr. Smith, or you would call him, Brother Wallace or whoever. But you called him by a title that is known in the community.
That's right.
Right? And only those who are close to the community would know his status and his position and his name.
Yeah.
So for me, and hearing that, and I sat there and watched with these bionic ears and paying attention and feeling the energy in the crowd, that I felt a little confident with that he's actually taken the time and to do that. Now, Asia, Miss little Asia, that I'm so proud of. I'm not her mother, but I felt very proud in the moment when she got up and made her speak in her comments before she read her poem, that she recounts incidents she had at 13. And now she's 19, and that it still causes trauma and some anxiety. But yet she was bold enough to speak her truth, right? And so I stand with those individuals because we all have had some kind of not so positive experience with the RCMP. Would we want that? No, nobody wants that, right? And then in regards to the police check, every time a police car goes by, you feel a little uneasy.
Uneasy, yeah.
Shouldn't have to be that way.
No,
right?
shouldn't be, yeah.
Especially if you're abiding by the laws of the land
Absolutely.
and the rules of the road.
Right. I agree with you, but some would argue that the community has a rule as well to have an open heart, accept those people, because we all need the police.
Yeah.
Police is an integral part of any government, any group of people. So what would you be saying to them as far as that relationship is concerned?
In terms of the jobs that they are signed
the
up
way
to do?
you receive the police in the community as well.
We're always going to be pleasant people, right? And we pay attention to everything. East Preston, the Preston Township, North Preston, Cherry Brook, Lake Loon is the best neighborhood watch community that I know, because we see you even when you don't see us.
All right.
And we pay attention to what's going on in our community. We know the cars that show up and drive up and down the street. We know who those are. And if something that's a little off screw, we're paying attention, or we're calling a neighbor and say, hey, what's going on down the street or up the street or whatever.
Right.
We pay attention. It's our job to. It's our job to look after one another.
Right.
And to know what's going on. So we're always welcoming. We're always inviting. There's not a gated door on that community, right? So when you come, just come respectful.
Right.
Address our elders as Mrs. So-so. I do that today.
Mm-hmm.
I don't call anybody. My grandmother would totally get after me. But you address them with respect and you treat them with respect. Because when we come as one.
Absolutely. How exactly, would you be expecting the police to relate with people of color going forward?
There is a level, and I'll be honest, of anger that stirs in you, and you're concerned about your safety and then how you're going to handle yourself in that situation.
Right.
And I think sometimes, there's that power struggle of I have the blue and the badge on, right? So you have to do this, that, or so, but we know our rights.
That's right.
And we do have a voice, and we can speak, and we can advocate, and we can stand up for those, especially our young people, who are very bright individuals, by the way, but not always knowing how to navigate when in a rock and a hard place with RCMP.
Yeah.
And I think that there's an injustice there when it comes to just, treating people less than who they are.
That's right.
Right?
Yeah. Absolutely. There's this word as we wrap up that is very, very common when it comes to police relationship with the citizens, and that's de-escalation. And
Yes.
people want to look forward to seeing de-escalation in most cases and not allowing tensions, to go overboard. Now, using your platform as a member of the community update, people know you in the community.
Yes.
As we wrap up, what will be your message to the broader community, both the African Nova Scotians and the people of African descent, as we wrap up?
Well, I would like to say to my community that I love very much, is that, again, I'm very proud of you. I am a product of you. And a result of your hard work and dedication is how you raised us all to be, is to keep going strong and to keep holding these individuals accountable to their actions, their professions, and then personal growth. Because I think as we grow together.
Right.
And I also think that, this one step will lead to many other people doing the right thing.
Right. Thank you so much, Nicole Johnson, for
It is I.
going through this with me.
Yes.
I believe community is listening, and the police as well. This RCMP, they are listening, and hopefully the right things will be done, and we'll build trust from there.
Absolutely.
All
And that's
right.
the hope. That's the hope.
That's the hope. Thank you for joining us today. These important conversations continue to shape our community and push us towards meaningful change. Stay tuned for more updates and stories that matter. Until next time, I am Promise Okoi.
And I'm Nicole Johnson, and we're saying take care and let's keep the dialogue going. Now, if you haven't already, please click the bell, subscribe to get your community update.